Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. This time, we're going back to cover the first time that Dennis Rodman stepped in between the ropes. It's Bash at the Beach 1997, and it's another episode of Law and Cewsh Talk 90s Sports.
Oh my God. Our auxiliary podcast that there probably is some kind of demand for, but who the fuck knows? This is so exciting. Not only do we get to talk about 90s sports, not only do we get to talk about one of the most famous celebrities ever to work in wrestling, and maybe the best at actually doing the wrestling, but we get to talk about a show that is top to bottom basically a miracle of quality.
Yeah, this is one of the best WCW shows we've done. I feel like most of the WCW shows we've done from this era were disappointments. This one way over-delivered my expectations.
Well, if you haven't listened to a ton of our podcasts, you might not know, but like Steve does all of this research, and most of these are shows that he's seen before and stuff like that. I go in blind to every single show just to give kind of a natural reaction like you would if you saw it. And so most of these shows are like, oh man, awesome, Bret Hart, I can't wait to see who he's wrestling. Oh, he's wrestling like Norman Smiley. What the fuck is this? It's constantly stuff like that. Like WCW pay-per-views are the biggest teases in the world. So for this show to actually deliver good stuff all the way through is a miracle.
Yeah, Chris Jericho versus Ultimo Dragon. The Great Muta Masachono versus the Steiner Brothers. Holy shit, that's like a Tokyo Dome main event.
Dude, I was on the floor when I saw that. Like, are you serious right now?
6-man lucha tag that was absolutely awesome. Benoit Sullivan in a career match. And then Rodman in the main event.
Shit, like Flair.
Oh, and Piper versus Flair.
Yeah, that's like a not even important match on this card.
No, it's by far Piper's best match in WCW.
It's not even close.
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about this before, that it becomes clear that around like 94, 95, Bash at the Beach and Halloween Havoc become WCW's actual top pay-per-views. It's not Starrcade anymore, and it's very apparent here.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you could ever really say that Starrcade was after the 80s, like at any point.
Yeah. I mean, this is a year, Starrcade does have a huge main event this year with Hogan versus Sting, but we did that show and the rest of the card was garbage.
Oh, it sucked. Just nasty garbage.
Yeah. So, I mean, to set the scene, it's the summer of 1997, and times have never been better for WCW. They're the hottest wrestling promotion in the history of the world. We're 1 year removed from the NWO's coming out party. Nitro is destroying Raw in the ratings. Their house shows are selling more tickets than ever. The pay-per-views are doing huge buy rates. And on this night, they've got a special attraction main event as Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman team up against Lex Luger and the Giant.
Oh, what a main event.
Dennis Rodman, I mean, we did the Bash at the Beach from the year after this where they had Rodman and Malone. I don't know if there was any attempt to get Malone for this match.
I mean, we kind of got a segue into 90s sports here for a minute, but would it have even been as relevant?
Well, yeah, because the Bulls and the Jazz have just played in the finals.
Oh, so that just happened here?
Yeah, they did not, because they played in both 97 and 98.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so they did 2 years in a row. The 97 series is not as memorable. Doesn't have the amazing, end of the career for Michael Jordan, but it was a really good series. It drew great ratings. Bulls won in 6 games, competitive series. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think there was any attempt to get Malone for this one, though.
No, and it wasn't that like natural heat like they had with the next one.
Where they actually got into a wrestling match on the court.
The one that Bob Costas described as despicable.
Yeah, one of those awful, phony wrestling shows. I don't know why Malone would lower himself to that. Fuck Bob Costas.
Just the most honest man in journalism.
Fucking Yankee bastard. So Rodman's been hanging around WCW in a few months at this point. As we covered in our WrestleMania 13 episode, he negotiated with the WWF back in the spring for a potential appearance at WrestleMania, but WCW topped the offer. Apparently the plan was to bring him in and make him Gold Dust's corner man for WrestleMania, which It's just pure trash.
Oh, that would have been absolutely the shits. Like, if they had done any sort of angle, like, imagine how much of a nightmare that would have been.
Rodman and Goldust. Fuck that.
Yeah, that is just offensive on every level.
Instead, WCW gets him and puts him in the NWO, and it's badass.
It's just such a great fit. And it makes the NWO feel younger and like more relevant. It really does.
Yeah, he's the bad boy of the NBA. He's the bad boy of professional sports at this point.
Yes, you cannot fucking touch Dennis Rodman at this point.
The only thing that would have been hotter would be Mike Tyson, which we'll talk about in a second.
Uh-oh.
Tease. But yeah, so at Uncensored in March, he interfered in a triangle battle royal clusterfuck match that was the NWO versus WCW versus the Horsemen, and helped the NWO win that one. That was the night Sting got physical for the first time, dropped down from the ceiling and murdered everybody with his baseball bat.
What a beautiful moment.
Yeah, one of the hottest endings to a pay-per-view I've ever seen. So Rodman is a member of the two-time defending champion Chicago Bulls. They are fresh off defeating the Utah Jazz in 6 games to win their second straight title. You know, he's famous, he's controversial. It's the perfect time to get him.
And again, we kind of talked about this when we talked about the other match that he had. But if you weren't around at the time, and especially a fan of basketball, you may not understand just how much of a heel this guy was. If you're a basketball fan now, just think about Draymond Green and how he's genuinely universally hated. It's that times 800 million.
Yeah, but way bigger. That's the thing. Dennis Rodman would be on the cover of Newsweek, on the cover of Vanity Fair.
Yes, he was declaring war against basketball, the very concept of sportsmanship. He was the guy who kicked a photographer in the front row because he got too close. He was literally a dangerous animal out there that people were terrified of.
Yeah, he skipped practice for the NBA Finals to go do wrestling, which you better believe caused a lot of AM sports talk guys' heads to explode.
But the thing that I always loved about Dennis Rodman was he was such an unbelievably amazing player and a selfless teammate that anybody who ever played with him was yeah, Dennis Rodman's the best, my favorite person I've ever played with. Michael Jordan, who famously hated every team he's ever had in his fucking life, including Scottie Pippen, never had a bad word to say about Dennis Rodman his whole career.
No, if MJ had wanted Rodman gone, he would have been gone in 5 minutes.
No question. It would have been so easy to get rid of him.
Yeah. So the other thing to note is Rodman's book just came out in May, and it was a bestseller. And this is when he was doing the stuff he'd have a book appearance, and he'd show up in a wedding dress and that kind of thing.
And in the book, it talks all about how he fucked Madonna and Carmen Electra and all of this crazy shit.
How he almost killed himself. It's a great book.
Oh, if you never read it, bad as I want to be, go pick it up, man. It's still a good read.
Yeah.
A little bit more depressing now that he's a United States ambassador to foreign nations and shit.
Jesus Christ. We are in the dumbest dystopia.
We really are.
So Spring Stampede 97 was the April pay-per-view. The main event there was Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page. DDP got the biggest win of his career to that point by pinning Savage with the Diamond Cutter. Just a huge moment for Page, and what an unselfish, it was literally Savage who was I'll put him over.
Savage who demanded to take the Diamond Cutter 1, 2, 3 in the middle.
Yeah, no bullshit. He's gonna pin me.
They wanted to overbook it, do a whole schmoz finish, and Savage marched into Bischoff's office and was no, Diamond Cutter in the middle or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, just all props to Randy Savage in an era where seemingly nobody in WCW would do a job. Although there's a bit of a jobs arms race that I feel starts this summer. It actually gets kind of interesting. I think this is where the NWO guys are all trying to prove that they're not bad guys backstage.
But it's the stupidest thing in the entire world because Savage actually puts Page over. Page beats him clean to conclude a feud. It's a beautiful, happy moment for Page. Page is made as a main eventer. Meanwhile, Hall and Nash are doing quick roll-up jobs to cruiserweights on Nitro.
Yeah, Hall's just oh yeah, I'll put Jericho over. Chris Jericho's not going to. Chris Jericho sucks at this point.
Yeah, Chris Jericho's not a threat. DDP is a threat to Randy Savage, and he puts him over.
Yeah, I mean, after that, Page is a bigger star than Savage is.
Yeah. Like that's the majesty of what Savage did there. Is like Savage knew what he was doing. Everyone else was just fucking around.
That same night, Lex Luger won a bizarre four corners match against the Giant Booker T and Stevie Ray to become #1 contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. That match is not memorable.
Stevie Ray got a #1 contendership match?
Yeah, I don't know why Harlem Heat are in a #1. They're tag wrestlers. I don't know why they're in a #1 contenders match. But that match may not be memorable, but Booker T's pre-match promo is, because it's the one where he calls Hulk Hogan the N-word. Yep.
Oh, sweet Jesus!
Just such a all-time gaffe. I haven't looked. I'm sure they edit this out on the network, but just we've all seen this clip. It's hilarious.
It's most people's introduction to like the concept of like botchamania and stuff like that. It's just
one of the original ones.
Imagine a botch so incredible that it defines your career. But it's not like the Shockmaster where it ruined Booker T's career. It's just one of those things that just like...
Yeah. There was no heat on him. Like, if it had been on a Nitro, it would have been a very different story. But it was on a pay-per-view. Like, nobody bought this pay-per-view. Nobody cares.
Right.
And Hogan just laughed about it and don't want to think about what he might have said about Booker T in the hotel room afterward.
Oh, yeah. Hulk Hogan was using the same word just for very different reasons.
So Luger wins the #1 contendership. As of this show, he's still waiting to get that title shot. Like, they're doing a thing where Hogan's ducking him. They're really doing a good job building Luger up here.
It's not just that, too, but, like, they're kind of... For some reason, all the belts in this company seem to be in stasis during this period. Like, the tag team belts never get defended.
Yeah.
The U.S. title barely gets defended. Only the Cruiserweight title ever actually gets defended.
Yeah, the U.S. title is totally nothing at this, but it's just like on Jarrett, and who cares? The tag belts are with the Outsiders forever, and they keep doing the dumb fuckery where they lose, and then they get the belts put back on them. Yeah. I think they held the tag belts for like a year and a half.
And this is 2 straight months without a world title match.
Yeah, Hogan is, I don't know, Hogan's filming something, I think. I don't know. It's, yeah. So these are, you very much get a series of B pay-per-views here.
Yeah. Now, that said, like the DDP Savage main event, thank goodness that Hogan didn't demand to be in the main event, because that is a great show because of that main event and that moment.
And it's so much, I think it's bigger for the show went off the air with him having just beaten Savage was huge for DDP.
Yeah, made man, absolutely. If that's in the undercard, it's probably nowhere near as impactful. And this, like, you don't need the title for this. This is the main event, period.
Yeah. And then in Slamboree 97 had another great main event. It was in Charlotte. Ric Flair returned to the ring after being out for about 6 months. Him, Piper, and Kevin Green teamed up to beat Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and 6. This was like a sign, like they beat all 3 NWO guys like simultaneously with their finishers. Like Piper put somebody out with the sleeper, like Green hit somebody with a power slam, and Flair had somebody in the figure 4. Like they couldn't have put him over any stronger.
That's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, and it's in Charlotte. The crowd is just on fire for this, and for once they didn't fuck Flair over in North Carolina.
It's a beautiful thing to hear that Ric Flair actually wins a match in Charlotte.
The one time in this era. Every other time he got his ass handed to him.
Yep.
June 9th, Nitro in Boston. Notable for a couple things. First off, to kind of pair up the timelines here, note that June 9th is the same night that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels are having their backstage fight on Raw. How great a time is this to be a wrestling fan?
God, it really is. It almost feels like it's in a different universe, too. Like that, those timelines don't feel like they line up.
No, but Shawn Michaels was fucking like, I'm going to drive to Boston, like as he was storming out of the arena. And he could have done it because Raw was in Hartford. He could have been in Boston in like an hour and a half.
Well, let's talk about this, too, because by the time Bret Hart actually does come to WCW, it feels like it's too late, right? If he had come the year prior, or if Shawn Michaels comes now, how ridiculous is that? You
got to put Shawn in the NWO, right?
I mean,
and but you like end up splintering him and like Hall and Nash and Pac off into the Wolf Pack.
You basically, that's the Wolf Pack. Yeah, it's the clique.
Yeah, like I think that's what you do with them. Like you bring him in and maybe he's Hogan, like he's in there with Hogan for a couple months, but like there's clearly tension, and then like the boys turn, like those guys can turn face.
Man, if that happens, I don't see how.
No,
That's so many horses, man. I
the
don't see how
WWF
WWE ever.
the WWF goes down. I
Yeah,
don't
there's
think
no
they make
way.
it. Oh, I mean, Austin probably saves them. The only thing is, there were a lot of scenarios where that pile driver ended Steve Austin's career. They were
Yeah.
very lucky it didn't. So there's a very legitimate possibility that they could have had Austin's career over at SummerSlam when he broke his neck there on that pile driver, which,
Man.
if that happens, they are doomed. Like, nothing's going to save them then.
And then it's just fucking Rocky Maivia on top feuding with nobody.
The Taker and Brett, and like dire stuff.
Gross.
Ooh. Yeah. So then, here in 2019, Eric Bischoff would have just hired Vince McMahon to run Nitro for him. Couple interesting things happen on the June 9th Nitro in Boston. First off, it does 18,000 fans for a gate of $243,000 for a Nitro. That is a company record, including for pay-per-views. To this point,
absolutely insane.
Yeah, they just packed the Fleet Center right in the heart of WWF country too. Like, imagine how good that feels as WCW to be drawing like that in the Northeast.
Oh yeah, you can absolutely understand why at this point, like, Eric Bischoff's head is swollen to the size of a weather balloon. Like, there's he's literally destroying WWE at their own game at this point.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Raw is in that shithole arena in Hartford.
Yeah. And they're lucky to get it.
Yeah. So Lex Luger beats Hogan in like an impromptu non-title match. Just like Hogan gets like forced into the ring and Luger gets him with the rack in about 5 minutes. Very interesting that Hogan just does a clean job on TV here.
Is there like a reason that we ever find out why he just randomly does that? Or is this just...
I think there was just there was a lot of backstage heat on the NWO at this point. I feel like they were all just kind of being like, let's all do some jobs to show everybody we're not total assholes.
And I mean, that's probably a good idea, though I don't think it even reduces the heat by like a degree. Nobody's buying it.
Because of how it turns out with Luger, it does not.
No.
We'll get to that later. Main event that night is Ric Flair and Roddy Piper against the Outsiders. This match does not go as planned. According to Nash, when they talked with Flair and Piper about it, they're like, okay, we gotta stretch this. It's gonna be like a 12-minute match. Let's make sure we start things kind of slow, build to the stuff. Instead, Piper and Flair like bum rush them as soon as the bell rings. And the match just eventually degenerates. Like, Piper won't sell for Nash. Nash won't sell for Piper. They end up just walking out of the match after 6 minutes. And then an insane brawl ensues because they have 10 minutes of airtime to fill. So we just get 10 minutes of progressively more people running down to the ring and fighting each other. We've got the Steiners, the NWO, the Horsemen, Benoit and Sullivan. The luchadors start running out there eventually.
Just the mental image of whoever's at the gorilla position,
yes.
Jimmy Hart or whoever the fuck it is, just being Hoovy, get out here.
Yeah.
Go fight the NWO.
Literally, I guarantee you, they were just running around seeing who was still there and be like, hey, get out there, go fight somebody. We just go fight. I love this. I thought this was amazing. This is what I want out of wrestling.
All
chaos.
The times I've ever seen a wrestling show descend into chaos like this, where just those SmackDown versus Raw times where it was just literally the whole show's fighting in the back. It's just beautiful. It just feels.
The TNA did a great one where there were people fighting all around the arena and in the parking lot. And the show, I think the show just eventually went off the air with the fight still going on.
Yeah, that was the best. It starts outside and then the camera guy slowly walks to the ring as there's just people fighting literally everywhere, falling out of the rafters and coming out of dumpsters and shit.
The invasion, the amazing old Stone Cold return.
Yes, where he just comes out and beats the shit out of 20 guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is something that's missing from wrestling today, is just the insane chaos of everybody's going to fight everybody. Like, it's breaking down in Tulsa.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's just the kind of thing that, like, gets your blood pumping, and you're like, man, I can't wait to fucking see what happens next week.
Well, and I love, WCW did this, like, every week. I love the we're out of time ending.
Like,
I love the cliffhanger of, like, we're out of, like, the show is not over, but, like, we're out of time. Like, we'll show you what happened here next week.
Like, that became such, like, a punchline. It's just like, oh, we're out of time. But it's such a compelling way for the show to end. It's just like, you don't want to do it in such a way that, like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not going to get to see the end of this match that we've been hyping all night. But if it's just like, oh, crap, something's developing, but we're out of time. Crap, these two guys are fighting into the crowd. We'll show you the video next week. Bye. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, that's beautiful. Like, that's a hook.
Exciting. Versus, how often today does Raw just go off the air with the babyface's music playing and he's posing in the ring?
So often these days.
Yeah.
And again, not to bag on the product continually now,
It's
but
this has been a thing for years now, though. This has been like a decade of this, I feel like. Just John Cena's music playing as the show ends.
and then you just watch until the logo is on the bottom of the screen, just in the off chance that there's going to be a twist.
Yeah.
It's like once every 5 years, it'll be a big twist that happens. It's just a waste of time. It doesn't pull you through to the next episode. It feels like an ending. Okay, I've seen it. John Cena wins. Great. Moving on.
So this show has an amazing ending as DDP is like getting the boots put to him by the NWO outside the ring. Sting comes down from the rafters, like lands next to DDP, and then like hooks him up to his harness and goes up into the like carries him away to safety, back up into the rafters. It's absolutely incredible. I'm sure this was incredibly dangerous, and it's a miracle nobody got killed doing this, but incredible to see.
All of the Sting things are kind of colored by the Owen Hart situation. Though, I mean, his harness, generally speaking, is a lot better than the one that Owen was dealing with that particular night.
Yeah.
But if I had been watching at the time, and I'm so jealous that you were and I wasn't, man, because this seems like I would have been losing my goddamn mind in my living room.
I mean, I've just always said I don't think there was ever a better time to be a wrestling fan than like 1997 and 1998. Like these two incredible promotions going at it, and especially the summers when like if you're a kid, you didn't have school, you could stay up late and watch the end of Raw and Nitro, and you're flipping back and forth between the shows, and it's insane. Like, can't top this stuff. Doesn't get any better than this. That's
the really crazy thing, that it would be so hard to explain to new fans today, like young kids now, to explain to them, like, you couldn't watch both.
Yeah.
Unless you had like a VCR and 2 TVs, there wasn't any way to see what was happening on both shows at the same time. You couldn't just like go back.
Of course, today I've got like 6 TVs and all kinds of streaming devices. So yeah, I can easily watch 2 things at once. But yeah, back then you've got your remote control in your hand and you're hitting the back button constantly to see what's going on the other show.
Yeah. So like change the channel heat was like a real thing. You'd be like, oh, X-Pac, fuck him. Let's go see what's on WCW.
Yeah. I've done a thing before that's really fun where I queue up Raw and Nitro from the same night on 2 different TVs at the same time and watch them at the same time, and it's a shitload of fun to just
see what pulls your interest.
Yeah, I'm just because I'll have the 2 different remotes. I'll like turn the volume up on what I actually want to watch and have the other one on silent.
And you can kind of see like how they were counter programming against each other.
Yeah, if you queue it up right, and the thing that gets confusing is like the times kept shifting because like Nitro would start a few minutes early so they could spoil Raw. And then like Raw kept changing their time slot. So it gets, when they're both 1 hour, it's easy. When the shows start expanding, it gets a lot more confusing. Like what hour was up against what hour.
Right. But just especially when Raw was taped and Nitro was just literally like all of their segments are literally counter programmed against Raw segments. So it's just like oh, you got a shitty-ass DOA match in the ring? Hogan's coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could very much see they're redoing things on the fly because they know, like, oh, we've got a weak segment. Like, now it's time to take advantage, grow that rate in.
Absolutely.
The Great American Bash went down June 15th in Moline, Illinois. WCW had pay-per-views in some strange places.
Moline, Illinois. Where the fuck is that?
I think that's one of the Quad Cities.
Okay.
Yeah, still.
Sorry if you're from Moline, Illinois.
I just want to point out, they just had Nitro at the Fleet Center in Boston, and then their pay-per-view was in Moline, Illinois.
Nitro's the draw, bro. Nobody cares about the
It's hilarious. Whenever like Conrad will ask Bischoff about that, he'll have some mumbo jumbo like, "Oh, we booked it way in advance or whatever. It was the building that was available." It's like you can run whatever buildings you want to now.
Yeah,
like you're having Nitros at the Superdome. Can you
like,
book some real towns for pay-per-views?
They've been hot for a year. Like it's not like at the end of '97 they were like, "All right, well maybe business will fall off completely." They knew.
Main event that night was DDP against Randy Savage in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Savage got the win there after interference from Elizabeth.
Fun.
Next night on Raw, or Nitro, one of my favorite Nitros, at the United Center in Chicago, opens with an absolutely epic entrance for the NWO. You ever seen this?
Which one is this?
Okay. The show opens. Voodoo Child begins to play, which is the first time they've ever used that for Hogan's entrance. Limos roll up into the parking lot. The NWO guys all get at it. It's like 2 or 3 limos, like 20 dudes. They've all got cigars. They've all been drinking. They're talking shit. They're posing. Rodman's there. We get a tracking shot that follows them all the way, like through the halls, out like through the curtain, and the crowd is going ape shit for Hogan and Rodman and the NWO. Hogan was always kind of over as a babyface in Chicago, even as a heel because it was a WWF town.
Right.
But here, they're in Chicago. This is like 2 weeks or a week after the Bulls have just won the NBA championship. And we've got Rodman there. And these guys are the biggest baby faces on the planet. And this is like the coolest, most relevant wrestling moment in the United States to this point, I would contend.
Oh, God, yeah. Fuck, maybe since, honestly. Like,
yeah.
To live that soon afterward. Like, the fucking championship parade happened like the day before.
Yeah. And you've got Rodman in Chicago.
And he's with Hogan.
The crowd, it's the United Center is a huge building. And they didn't sell it out, but they had over 16,000 people there, paying $218,000 at the game. I mean, just listen to these numbers. These are for Nitros. Back in the early 90s, they were doing pay-per-views with like $50,000 gates.
Shit, their buys weren't even making that much money.
Oh, it's crazy how hot they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's just a great moment. And like, what hype for this main event match to have Rodman and Hogan in front of this rabid Chicago crowd. I don't know if you've ever been in the United Center. It gets loud as hell when it gets loud in there.
It's actually one of my favorite arenas in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I love it in there.
It's deafening. We haven't had a big Bulls game in a long time, but like big Blackhawks game, deafening in there.
Hell yeah.
June 30th, another big episode of Nitro. They teased that there was going to be a big surprise this night. So early in the show, they pan the crowd and we see that Raven is sitting in the front row, which is a huge debut. Raven's coming off a monster run in ECW. And, you think that, okay, there's our big surprise. We've got Raven. Turns out there's another surprise because Curt Hennig shows up for the main event.
Man, that's such like a 1-2 punch. Like, they're getting so much cool talent in at this point. Like, just like talent is falling into their laps left and right while WWE's like scraping it up out of the ditch.
Yeah, so like the show is ending with a huge brawl, which it always does in this. I mean, that's every Nitro in this era. It just ends with a bunch of guys fighting each other.
I mean, naturally.
Hennig just walks down the ramp, like doesn't really get into it with anybody, but he walks down the ramp, and then Raven jumps the rail in as they do the "we're out of time, we gotta go" thing. But crazy hot ending to the show.
And again, like, this is an example of how good the booking is at this point, okay? You have the same, like, random brawl, whatever. But as the show's going off the air, Raven jumps the rail. What the fuck is he going to do? Whose side is he on? Curt Hennig comes down. What the fuck is he going to do? Whose side is he on? You don't get an answer to either of those questions. You got to tune in next week. That's just brilliant.
Yeah. So now let's go into what could have happened that night but didn't. Mike Tyson could have shown up.
Dude, at that night?
They were in Las Vegas. You know what happened on Saturday night before this?
What?
Tyson Holyfield, the ear-biting fight.
Steve.
No, I know.
Steve. Well, first of all, I feel like he would have been pelted with garbage had he actually shown his face.
I mean, that was why he couldn't do it, because it's 2 nights after this national disgrace. Like, he started a bit of Evander Holyfield's ear off and started a riot.
Literally, like every sports show on television, on the radio, everywhere, all anybody's talking about is that for like a month straight. Like, there's no question that he could not have done it. But what if he had just
international
won that fight?
Mainstream news story? Like CNN is covering that.
Yes, but like,
imagine
even if he had lost the fight, which he was definitely going to before he bit his ear off, because he was getting his ass kicked. But like, just to have Tyson come out a week after a pay-per-view fight, one of the biggest pay-per-view fights of all time.
Yeah. Huge missed opportunity here, and WCW like. Turner, I think Turner management vetoed the idea. They're not going to do that. I mean, I don't know whether it was a concern that Mike Tyson was also a convicted rapist. Probably not, honestly.
There were a lot of issues with Tyson. Let's just be clear. Like, it's not somebody that you really wanted to do business with, aside from the fact that he was arguably the most famous sports celebrity of that year.
Yeah. Tyson and Rodman on the same show in 1997?
Well, that's the thing. Like, you got to put them together, right?
Yo, you're going to put Tyson in the NWO. Of course you are.
Fuck.
And
so then it's just like
Tyson's a huge wrestling fan.
So then what? You got like a 6-man match, Tyson, Rodman, and Hogan versus people?
Man, Tyson could have used the payday. Again, we know how history turns out. Tyson ends up going to the WWF. He does the thing with Steve Austin. They do that huge buy rate for WrestleMania, and that springboards them to overtake WCW. This feels like it might have been the turning point right here.
Yes. Like, even if they just block WWE from doing that.
That's the biggest thing is even if it doesn't pan out for you still stopped WWE from being able to use them.
Well, yeah, because when Bischoff talks about it, he's always like, yeah, it didn't really work out with Tyson. And then I saw that they got him. It was like, oh, shit. Well, we're fucked. Like, what? You could have done something about that.
I think Turner management said no. I don't think they were up for doing business with Tyson at that point.
And it was a timing thing, because by like the following year, like everything's kind of cooled off at least a little for Tyson.
And the other thing with Tyson is Tyson grew up in Brooklyn. He was a WWF guy.
Right. He was a
grew up watching Bruno Sammartino and Gorilla Monsoon and all those guys.
Right. That's where he wanted to be. That was his heart.
But the WWF couldn't afford him at this point.
It's just so stunning that nobody ever got a match out of him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess as we kind of covered with the WWF, they just didn't need him.
Right.
They got so hot without him that there was no reason to pay him a bunch of money. I'm kind of surprised WCW didn't try after. Like, if you're WCW in '98, why not give it a shot?
Especially after it's already worked.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, bring him in.
Yeah, so WCW, if WWF's not going to use him again, pay him $1 million to do a match. You'll make it back. See him actually get in the ring with Goldberg or Hogan or whoever.
Well, here's the thing. Like,
Mike Tyson versus Goldberg?
I'm not sure that a singles match ever necessarily would have been a good idea, because Mike Tyson versus Goldberg sounds like some shit they do with like Hustle in Japan, where it's the shits, but you pay just for the novelty.
Yeah, make Goldberg box him.
Yeah, or just do like Goldberg and Rodman versus Tyson and Hogan, or just do a tag match. But like the draw of the idea of that, by just having Tyson in with like Goldberg, is out of this world.
Yeah. So I mean, the big matches for tonight. The main event is Hogan and Rodman against Luger and the Giant. You know, no titles, no gimmicks, just a huge tag match.
Yeah.
You know, solid use of Rodman. When we get into the match, it's one of those that might have been better as a 6-man, because Rodman, you would have had more work. Like, having Hogan have to carry the match in 1997 is not the greatest idea.
No, though arguably when we get to it, we'll kind of discuss who actually carries the match, and it's weird.
Yeah. DDP and a mystery partner will face Randy Savage and Scott Hall. Speculation abound about who this mystery partner is going to be. Mean Gene on the hotline is teasing Shawn Michaels is jumping over from the WWF, which he of course, can't do because he's under contract and they're not letting him out. But Mean Gene loved a good scheme.
Do you think that at that point in history, Shawn Michaels could have forced his way out?
I mean, if he just won't work, he won't work. He's in breach. The contracts aren't real. They're not going to pay him.
That's the thing. Like, if he can like hire a lawyer, he can probably get out because the contracts weren't even that ironclad. They weren't even doing like you can't go work for somebody else if you leave here things yet.
Yeah. No, the contracts are not worth the paper that they're written on at this point.
Yeah.
As we see when Vince just like decides, no, I can't pay you this, Brett. Like, gonna have to let you go.
Yeah. Like, how crazy is that? It's just like, oh no, sorry, we're just not gonna do this thing that we signed a contract for.
Yeah. WCW has they've sort of been teasing its sting before this show went on the air, as the ring announcer was like firing up the crowd. He did something where like they asked like, who do you think is going to be DDP's partner tonight? And he like motioned towards the rafters, which strongly implies Sting.
Of course you would think that it's Sting. Sting saves DDP right before this. Yep. Sting and DDP are like the two Lone Rangers fighting off the NWO by themselves at this point. Of course it's them. Like, you would just naturally assume that.
Spoiler, it's not them.
No, and that's the thing. It's like the crowd is chanting, "We want Sting," over and over throughout this show. And they are disappointed.
No. Also speculation it's going to be Raven. They keep saying something about like the relationship between Raven and DDP, which is very interesting.
I feel like the idea was that they were going to do the storyline like they did with Tommy Dreamer, just with DDP instead.
They did. Well, they do is the thing. They end up doing that in '98. I'm really impressed they were already laying the seeds for that. But yeah, are they I don't think they've ever been like on screen. There wasn't something with like Johnny Flamingo, and he didn't play that character in WCW. I can't remember what his name in WCW was, but
Scotty the Body, I think.
Scotty the Body, that's right. I don't know. Were him and DDP a tag team in the early '90s or something?
Probably, because they were both comedically shitty heels.
Yeah. So yeah, they're already teasing something between Paige and Raven, but Paige's partner will end up being Curt Hennig, which is cool, but a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, if Curt Hennig's the only guy who you might think it is, you'd be like...
They also shouldn't have debuted Hennig before this. They should have just had him come out on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, he just shows up on the pay-per-view. It's cool. But yeah, he's already shown up. They've already done a promo where Flair has like asked him to join the Horsemen. So that's the whole question is he WCW, is he NWO, or is he Horseman?
He's a free agent.
Yeah. Ric Flair will face Roddy Piper as their partnership has broken down. They had a house show run in the WWF in 1991, but this is their first big national TV match.
The crux of this feud, and correct me if I'm wrong, is basically just that in the middle of all of this, Flair really wants to be a heel. Despite the fact that like nobody wants to boo him or the Horsemen. He wants the Horsemen to be a heel stable. So
they did a thing where Piper and Flair were a tag team, and Flair like bailed on their match to go chase Six like out of the arena, and Piper ended up getting his ass kicked, and that was the breakup of their stable.
Right.
Yeah. Flair wanted to turn heel.
But like the
Horsemen are so strange, and whether the Horsemen are faces or heels is just one of those unanswerable questions in this era.
And like genuinely from like segment to segment it changes.
Yeah. Depends who they're fighting.
Well, the truth is that no fan wants to boo the Horsemen at all. Like the fans don't want to boo Flair. They just don't.
No, and it's nuts that they tried to make the Horsemen heels when they have the massive NWO heel stable, and the Horsemen are such natural babyface opponents for them.
That's what doesn't make sense to me, is that like there's really never a stable that coalesces to feud with the NWO.
Yeah. It seems like that would have been what this was ultimately building towards, was WCW finally unites and we get all the top WCW guys together. And because they're on the same page, they can finally beat the NWO. Like, he brings out like Sting and DDP and all these guys, and he like, tonight we're all Horsemen, and then they just destroy the NWO. Yeah. Never happens. Yeah. Because like the Horsemen are basically the encapsulation of like the pure WCW. Yeah. They represent tradition. Yes.
Like all old school fans look to them, look to Flair, but it's never that way at all.
This show will also see the conclusion of the bizarre Chris Benoit Kevin Sullivan saga, which has been going on screen and off for a solid year now. They had their first big match at the Great American Bash 1996, and they've had other matches since then. Benoit has had to fight, Ming and the Barbarian and a bunch of other members of Sullivan's stable. They've brought in Jacqueline and done all sorts of things. This is one of the most bizarre sagas in wrestling history. On
screen and off, as you said, yes. This thing makes no fucking sense from the outside at all. Like it's just impossible to tell what anybody's motivation is for making any of this happen.
Yeah, so let's explain this both on screen and off. So Kevin Sullivan is the booker of WCW. He is also on-screen wrestler, the Taskmaster, the leader of the Dungeon of Doom, evil guy, guardian of the gates of hell, etc., etc. His wife is Nancy Sullivan, a.k.a. Woman, Ric Flair's valet in the Four Horsemen, and his on-screen squeeze.
Yes.
But then Chris Benoit begins having a romantic relationship on screen with Woman, although it's not really stated openly. It's just kind of like she starts coming out during his matches. I don't even know if we ever saw them kiss.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So Sullivan freaks out and starts beating the shit out of Benoit and yelling at Woman, and he's like, if you had called me last night, this wouldn't be happening, stuff like this. At no point does anyone say, hey, Kevin Sullivan and Woman are actually married. You're just supposed to understand this somehow.
Yeah, is Woman ever even his valet at any point?
Sullivan's?
Yeah.
I think she was in Florida back in the day.
Okay, but it's not clear to this audience at all.
No, they may have been together back in the Jim Crockett era. Since WCW, she's been with the Horsemen for a while. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it's at some point Flair's got a couple women because he's got Woman and he's got Elizabeth because he stole her from Savage.
And this is all kind of weirdly complicated on screen because the Dungeon of Doom are feuding with the Horsemen before this whole Benoit thing starts.
Yes.
And Sullivan's feuding with Pillman before Pillman leaves.
Yeah.
So it's almost like an accident that he falls into Benoit, but then all this Nancy stuff starts, and it's just so odd. It's so hard to put a finger on where Benoit starts actually fucking Kevin Sullivan's wife.
Yeah, so that's the next part to point out is somewhere in here, Chris Benoit and Nancy Sullivan start actually having an affair in real life.
Which, yeah.
And we know how that ended.
I mean, look, we can't go any further without talking about the fact that allegedly WCW is a place where everyone's fucking each other's wives, right?
There's definitely a culture of wife swapping, and with Bischoff, Paige and Kimberly, with Hogan, there's a lot of this going on. Seems like it was part of the deal. Savage and Gorgeous George and whoever else.
I mean, look, we're not here to judge. This is just a bunch of rich people who hang out all the time doing coke together, and God knows whatever happens. That it doesn't matter what that they're doing this. What matters is that if you're doing this, you can't catch feelings,
Yeah.
Which is what everyone kind of assumes is what happens here.
Yeah, it's just this big chicken and egg question. I guess the other thing to point out, Sullivan, it's sort of portrayed as Benoit stole Sullivan's wife from him. Well, Sullivan and Nancy were separated at this point, and I think very clearly on their way to divorce. And heard many podcasts and interviews with Sullivan, and he's talked about it, and he has never expressed any bitterness towards how their relationship ended.
In fact, quite the opposite. He's always put over Benoit, gone out of his way to put over Benoit in interviews when he was booking.
Yeah. This is the bizarre thing that I don't think Chris Benoit ever had a bigger advocate backstage than Kevin Sullivan. Like,
Yes.
this saga will continue in the year 2000 when Sullivan gets the book back, and his first move is to make Benoit the world champion. We'll cover that another time.
Yes, but there's just like so many layers to this, and so much of it is just because so much of this is just he said, she said. The only people who really know what happened are Nancy, Benoit, and Sullivan's the only one still alive to tell the tale, and he ain't talking.
So Sullivan and Benoit got in a backstage fight at a bar at the Superdome after a Nitro back in January, but most people seem to think that was a work.
Yes, like it was like super orchestrated. Nobody really gets hurt. It's very odd. Like it's odd for doing.
Why are they doing like when I've heard Bischoff asked about it and he's just like, I have no idea what was real and what was fake. Like it seems like he just like washed his hands of that whole thing. Just didn't want to be involved in it.
It seems like okay. So this kind of goes back to the Brian Pillman thing because
I wonder this was supposed to be Pillman, right?
Yes. Like, I genuinely think that this entire storyline was meant to revolve around Pillman because his whole storyline was he was shooting. Like, hey, Booker, man, like talking to Sullivan and stuff like that. Like,
so it makes sense that he would break the fourth wall and reveal that Sullivan was actually married to woman.
And then start fucking his wife. And like, haha, I got you.
Of course, in the storylines, Ric Flair is fucking his wife.
I know!
What the hell is this? The storyline is so bad, is the thing. It's horrible.
It just doesn't make any sense.
The matches are great, but like the storyline is stupid as shit. And I can't believe anyone watching it had any idea what was going on.
I mean, I know all of this random information and gossip and hearsay, and I don't have any idea what the fuck is going on. Everything I've ever read about this topic just made me more confused.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sullivan was sent home for a couple weeks like before this. He still has this match. I assume that was when it became kind of known that Chris and Nancy were actually dating.
And this might be like in TNA where they sent Jarrett home just as a precaution.
Just protected.
Yeah. Like, let's not make a big stink out of this.
Yeah, like we're gonna send him home, and it turns out everything's okay. It's pretty insane that they still go through with this match because, I mean, you would think there was a real shot that Kevin Sullivan was just going to grab a real chair and like actually nail Benoit on the head with it.
Well, yeah, see, that's the thing, is that if you genuinely think that Sullivan is heated over Benoit stealing his wife, you're really going to send them out there for like a no DQ match with all of these dangerous spots
and they're going to fight in the crowd and stuff? Like,
they're going to fight under the set. Like, what the hell are you doing?
What a just human HR disaster this is.
Yes.
Can you imagine like a Bischoff or whoever having to go to Turner sports executives and explain this shit to them?
Yeah, not only did we let the guy who's running our creative department book himself in a match with the guy who's sleeping with his wife, but we let them go out on live television while he shot on him and ended his career. Like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah. Remarkably, as Benoit said in interviews afterward, like, said Sullivan never took one liberty with him, like not even one stiff shot. I mean, they worked crazy stiff, but that was how they worked. Like, they were trying to make it look real, but not even one potato.
And like, that's the thing, is that either A, Sullivan knows how under scrutiny he is through this whole thing, and he knows the only way to keep his job or to not be blackballed from the industry is just to play it cool, put Benoit over, like, be a good like company man, or B, he's just not that broken up about it. Which is like the craziest deal.
No, I think that's what's at the core of it, is like his marriage to Nancy was over and he didn't care that like she was going to date Chris now.
Yeah, I think it's just two separate things. Like, they had the storyline where they were already going to have like somebody's fucking Kevin Sullivan's wife. And then it just so happened that Nancy and Benoit actually became a couple. Like the work turned into a shoot, like Triple H and Stephanie style. Yeah,
we should also note that like at Sullivan's instruction, they traveled together. He was like, you guys need to make this look real. So like, I want you to travel together, like room together, you know, have lunch together, let people see you together acting like a couple. And they work themselves into a shoot, which happens a lot in wrestling.
Well, yeah, like
happens in movies. Like, this is a real thing.
Anybody that you spend a ton of time with, like, it's easy to like develop chemistry with that person. Like, this is how Angelina Jolie meets Brad Pitt. Like, there's a lot of
Bradley
examples.
Cooper and Lady Gaga.
Exactly. Like, you just, oh shit, I got crazy chemistry with this person. I got to start fucking them. Like, I guess that's just happens.
So yeah, and also we forgot to talk about Nash and Piper getting into a fight backstage.
Oh yeah, that whole thing, yeah.
So after that match we talked about that like broke down, Nash found Piper backstage, they had words, and according to Nash, he just smacked Piper and like they got separated and that was the end of it. But shit's just getting, I mean, even as things are better than ever, like things are boiling over backstage.
And at the center of all of it just always seems to be Kevin Nash during this period, doesn't it?
During that pot. Him and Sullivan had a thing a few months before this, like just stirring up the shit. And somehow it ends with him being the booker. And
a year from now, like, here's the Kevin Nash model. Just keep like plugging away, stirring the pot, stirring the shit, and then eventually you get to the top. And it just always works out like that for him.
Yeah. Yeah, a year after this, like, he becomes the booker and, like, Sullivan's his assistant.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's the best of times, but you can already see some storm clouds on the horizon.
We're still in 97. They have only... it's been literally 1 year since they dragged themselves out of the gutter. And it's already falling apart.
This is a lot of egos and a lot of money and a lot. I mean, you can't write a better soap opera than this. Got guys fucking each other's wives, guys getting in fights backstage. Woo, what a time to be alive.
Here's the fascinating thing about this to me. Just like thinking of the concept of time, the entire Attitude Era happens in a 4-year span, depending on how you calculate when it starts and when it ends. All of this shit that Steve just mentioned happened in the last 3 months. Today, a year ago, everything was exactly the fucking same.
Well, and and over in the WWF, it's just crazy. You got Brett and Shawn beating the shit out of each other backstage. Yeah.
Before the AEW thing started, when was the last time there was a genuine news story about any wrestler doing anything of significance? Like every 10 years?
When is the last time there was a backstage fight?
Fucking God.
These guys don't have anything to fight about anymore.
Everyone's just playing Xbox backstage.
Yeah, the kids these days.
Everything's cool. They're making their money, whatever.
So, Bash at the Beach 1997 goes down July 13th, 1997 at the Ocean Arena in Daytona Beach, Florida, the kind of consistent home of Bash at the Beach. Attendance, 7,851. I think that's approximately a sellout. It's a small arena. 6,300 paid for a $150,000 gate. Again, they're running much smaller arenas for the pay-per-views than they do for Nitros. It's very weird.
It is very weird.
I saw a bunch of different buy rates for this. They were all kind of between 0.8 and 1, so pretty strong performance. That's like 320, 330,000 buys.
Pretty good.
Yeah, up from 250,000 for Bash at the Beach the previous year. On commentary, we've got Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan, Dusty Rhodes, and for some matches, Mike Tenay.
Who they hate and don't want to associate with.
God, Mike Tenay's so great, though.
Like, they literally treat Mike Tenay like they keep him in locked into his locker until they're ready for him, and then they pull the nerd out to talk about stuff.
Yeah. We open with highlights of the NWO versus Luger and Giant feud, and we cut into the arena for a bunch of pyro. Always love the Bash at the Beach set. They've got the sand, like the dock, the water, everything. I just love this. What a cool stage.
This is my favorite thing about WCW. The one thing it unquestionably has above WWE and always would and always did is the sets. And the amount of time and care they put into actually making them look different and interesting. Like, you turn into Bash at the Beach, it does not look like Halloween Havoc or Spring Stampede or whatever else. It looks like Bash at the Beach.
Yeah, I love how the show is a character.
Fuck yes.
And it's not like this is expensive. It's like sand and a lifeguard chair.
They're in Daytona Beach. Sand is not hard to get.
No, not at all. Yeah, and like the fake graveyard for Halloween Havoc can't have been real expensive.
No, they're styrofoam gravestones. You can pick them up at Michael's for $10.
It just drives me crazy that they use the same set for every WWE show.
Just it's the same for Raw. It's the same for SmackDown. It's the same for. They just change the color.
All the pay-per-views, it's just screens. Yeah, occasionally you'll get a prop. If it's Money in the Bank, you get some ladders. I don't even know. Do they even do the money truck anymore?
I don't think so.
I love the money truck.
Money truck.
Yeah,
great.
This is something I really wish they'd bring back pay-per-view sets.
Hell yeah.
Opening match. What the fuck is this? Wrath and Mortis versus Glacier and Ernest Miller.
We got to go back and talk about Blood Runs Cold and what this whole thing is, because we've never talked about this before.
I think Glacier has just debuted, hasn't he?
He's been in for a little while because he's still they're like hyping up how undefeated he is. Yeah. So like this is like they had just brought in Wrath to pair with Mortis because Mortis couldn't get the job done by himself. Yeah. And so Ernest Miller came in to help Glacier.
So they spend months building Glacier. They have all these video packages hyping him. Blood Runs Cold. He makes his debut. He's got this incredibly elaborate entrance where the lights go down and there's all these blue laser lights and like snowflakes fall from the ceiling. It's incredibly cool looking.
Yes. And the idea is that Eric Bischoff's big idea for how to save WCW was to basically turn it into a kid show where he was going to have like one really marketable character and then they were just going to spin off from that. So this is going to be like a series of like action figures and like a Saturday morning cartoon show about Glacier. And like this was the plan. The NWO was never the plan. That just randomly fell in their laps. That's
what's so fascinating about how like out of step with everything else they're doing at this point is.
Yes. But like I will say this. This is often buried as like a super horrible idea, and it feels so dated and weird in comparison to what's going on the rest of the show. But I will submit this was a good idea.
If somebody good had been if they had a good wrestler as Glacier, this probably would have worked.
I'll even submit that even if they had Ernest Miller be Glacier, it probably would have worked. But just somebody with any talent or charisma at all.
I cannot remember the name of this guy who played Glacier.
He's a fucking cop, first of all. Literally, he's just like a police officer who trained how to wrestle, and here he is. He knows some martial arts.
He's a terrible martial artist.
Well, here's the thing, too. Like, all of this being built completely around martial arts is just because Eric Bischoff, the man, is obsessed with that.
And I'm sure, like, one of his son, was playing Mortal Kombat. And, he saw it and, this is 100% Sub-Zero, Mortis is, I don't remember the Mortal Kombat characters, but there was
Scorpion or whatever,
I love Mortal Kombat. I loved it when I was a kid. Doesn't necessarily mix well with wrestling. I love Mortis, though. I think Mortis is awesome.
Oh, and James Vandenberg, who is Jim Mitchell, as, the evil guy. And, there's all this backstory that, you never really hear about. No. But, Glacier was trained in the dojo and was given mystical ice powers by his sensei, and he traveled the world fighting in blood sport tournaments until he came across Mortis, who was made of radiation.
Yeah. And I love Wrath too. Wrath is Atom Bomb. He's a fucking badass.
I just wish he had gotten a mask too. He just kind of looks like himself.
Which is kind of weird. Doesn't really should have given him a bit more of an elaborate outfit, but Ernest Miller is super charismatic, was not much of a wrestler, although he can actually throw kicks is the nice thing.
That's the thing.
He's actually a pretty good martial artist and a great athlete.
This is why I feel like he would have been a better fit for Glacier, is that he's an actual martial artist and looks like he it's a lot of martial artists who are real martial artists get in the ring and they don't throw full kicks because they're afraid to hurt people.
Yeah, because you kill somebody with one of those things.
Ernest Miller doesn't give a shit about hurting people.
Yeah, he's just swinging wildly.
But on the other hand, that makes his kicks look amazing because he's just sending them. So and he has actual charisma and promo ability.
So as much as we've buried this, I actually liked this match.
This match was so good.
Yeah, against all odds, I thought this was actually a good match.
And Glacier had never had anything approaching a good match before this. He had done
stunk.
Some squashes. He had had some matches with Mortis, but they sucked ass.
It was horrible. They spent so much money on this character and this entrance.
And they just gave it to this asshole.
Well, and it just, yeah, and I was...
And like, I don't want to bury this.
Was he like Bischoff's former karate buddy or something? I'm trying to even remember the backstory on it.
No, I don't think so. I think he was just a guy they had in the power plant.
Oh, for God's sake. How could that have been the guy they picked?
I just... Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm looking at it now. Diamond Dallas Page got him the gig, which is how everyone got their goddamn job.
Bischoff, Page was the setup man.
Apparently Bischoff sat down with Ray Lloyd, talked to him for 3 hours, and immediately signed him to a contract and decided to make him Glacier.
And of course, Bischoff would deny that actually happened that way. Because,
of course he would.
He doesn't remember anything except when it's something stupid he did. He remembers for sure that it didn't happen.
Just imagine if this much pomp and circumstance had been put behind somebody like Jericho. Like, it just, like, it defies the imagination. But anyway, this match, like, Mortis and Wrath are a badass tag team in this match. They are just, like, they've got, like, all these tag team moves together, and they're just destroying Glacier and Miller.
God, he debuted all the way back in September 96. He's been around forever already.
And he hasn't feuded with anyone but Mortis this whole time because they keep him like The Undertaker in the 90s, just separate from the rest of the roster. It's like the stink doesn't get on anybody else.
Yeah, they stop and start him. Like, he debuts and he has a couple matches, then they take him off TV for a while and he comes back. Yeah, like, total bomb, and they just can't quit it.
I mean, they put so much money into it. They got to get something out of it. Luckily, this match happens, which is the best match of Glacier's career, unquestionably. But, like, let's talk about the sickest spot I've maybe ever seen, where, like, Wrath puts the chair in between, like, Glacier's head is in between a chair and the ring post, and Mortis super kicks the shit.
Yeah.
And you hear, like, a dong. That was, oh, my God. I, like, cringed audibly in my seat.
Yeah, so Mortis is Chris Kanyon under a mask. Awesome wrestler. Great wrestler. And, like, again, the Mortis outfit, it's a little too cheesy. I think there was a way to do this. Instead of being, like, foam fake ribs, it should have been more, like, organic looking, more leather.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Mortis is a cool character.
Oh, God, yeah. Fuck yes. Like, he looks awesome.
Yeah. Love the mask. Love the dark. I think, you can have a couple of these on your roster.
Absolutely. Like, it's kind of a shame that he basically is done as Mortis very soon after this.
Yeah, he turns into Kanyon like early 98, I think. Really doesn't do anything significant as Mortis after this.
Yeah.
Mortis and Glacier get the win after that big kick we referenced. A shockingly good match.
Like, it's just so fucking good. Like, I can't even tell. Like, it doesn't make sense how good it is because all these people kind of suck except for Kanyon, but, like, it's genuinely good. Like, the ending is where Vandenberg slips, a chain onto Mortis's foot, and Mortis super kicks Glacier in the face with it. Like, that's sick.
Yeah. And the show gets better from here. Next up, for the Cruiserweight title, we've got Chris Jericho defending against Ultimo Dragon. Oh, fuck yeah.
I think you mean Ultimate Dragons.
The Ultimate Dragon.
This is, again, I watch these things completely free, so I see, like, Ultimate Dragon come out, and I'm like, oh, okay, who's he feuding with, or who's he going to fight? Like, Dean Malenko or some random fucking luchador. Jericho? Oh, hell yes. This is war on my screen, baby.
Even if Chris Jericho kind of sucks at this point.
Yes, but like
he's great in the ring. It's his character. Like, he's playing it very basically playing like Ricky Morton, like really cheesy 1980s babyface.
But this, if you put him in the ring with Ultimo Dragon, that calls back to CMLL and it calls back to War. Like, these guys have had like 30 matches together by this point, and they've got like their chemistry is down.
Dragon lays in some really stiff kicks. I love Ultimo Dragon.
He's so fucking good.
Like, everything about him rules. I love that he's got this mixed like luchador and martial arts and Japanese moveset.
Mm-hmm. And like so many, like you guys don't even realize that so much of what you see in like New Japan today is because of Ultimo Dragon. Like first it's because of Mil Mascaras, who made such an impression when he went to Japan from Mexico when he was doing that in like the 70s and 80s. But like Ultimo Dragon being who he was and becoming such a huge star in Mexico and then founding Toryumon, like so many guys came from that. All like the Michinoku guys, and like even fucking Okada was part of that stable at one point. Like the whole Mexico-Japanese fusion that we enjoy today, that's such a huge part of indie wrestling, a large part of it is because of Ultimo Dragon.
Jericho hits a power slam for a close 2 count. He goes for the superplex, but Dragon blocks. Jericho then drop kicks Dragon off the top rope, like springs up and hits him with a drop kick.
Except he doesn't hit him with the drop kick.
No, totally misses. But Dragon sells it like he hit it.
But that was a great, like, that's the best Tony Schiavone moment of the night. Is where, like, it's clear that Jericho missed him with the drop kick. So Schiavone's like, oh, Dragon dropped down to the floor to avoid that drop kick. He hurt himself a little bit, but not nearly as much as he would have with the drop kick. And I'm like, okay,
good job
Schiavone,
covering.
I see you being Jim Ross over there.
Yeah. Jericho then hits a crossbody to the floor. Jericho brings him back in. He goes for an elbow drop, but Dragon gets his foot up. Dragon sets up for something on the top rope, but he gets thrown off by Jericho. Pops back up, gets thrown off the top rope to the floor. Jericho comes off the top rope for another crossbody, but this time Dragon springs up and drop kicks him in the gut.
God, that's so good.
Yeah. Jericho goes for another springboard but misses, and Dragon hits the Asai moonsault out to the floor.
And it's got to be said that, like, these guys are so polished, especially, like, the cruiserweights at this point are obviously awesome. Most of them have worked with each other so much that it's very smooth. But these guys are doing, like, chains of moves. Like, we always talk about, like, when RVD and Jerry Lynn would wrestle and stuff like that, where it's just, like, chain wrestling over and over. Like, all of this stuff is just spots that they've done a million times before, and it feels that way.
Jericho just barely beats the 10 count back into the ring. Dragon hits a Hurricane Rana. Jericho makes a comeback. He goes for the lion salt, but gets drop kicked in the stomach in just an incredible spot.
Yes. Just the timing that it takes to hit that spot that well.
Yeah. Dragon tries for a tiger suplex. Jericho blocks it. Dragon goes to the Dragon Sleeper, but Jericho slips out. Dragon hits a clothesline and a top rope moonsault. Dragon goes for another tiger suplex. Jericho blocks it. He goes for the tiger bomb, gets him up, like rotates him, but Dragon gets him with a Hurricane Rana, but Jericho rolls through that into a sunset flip pin for the 3. Hell of a match.
Hell of a match.
Yeah, great stuff.
My favorite part of this match, too, is that at one point, like, Bobby Heenan just says, hey, Tenay, just talk about what's going on. And then everyone else just shuts up for, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, didn't put over Mike Tenay's commentary here, but as always, just doing a tremendous job explaining who these guys are, explaining their backstories, the fact that they've wrestled before. This is such a breath. I mean, just 180 degrees removed from the Dusty Rhodes style of commentary, which is just call whatever you. Whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, it just. Whoa, he really should have gone for the pin right there. I don't really understand why they're still doing moves.
Yeah, Mike Tenay. I don't think this division works without Mike Tenay.
No, and it was so smart of them to just put him out there and just make everyone else get out of his way in the important moments. Like, they did a really good job of it.
Yeah. And they finally eventually promote him and just make him the permanent third man in the booth instead of Dusty.
Mike Tenay will always be underrated. Like, he was actually one of the reasons that made TNA actually work even as well as it did, was he lent it a lot of gravitas and knowledge that really nobody else in his position could have.
It sucks that the WWF never hired him.
He was just so old at that point, you know?
He doesn't have the look Vince is looking for.
Oh, no. He looks like
Gargoyle.
A man who makes, like, model airplanes in his spare time. He's not national TV material to Vince.
But, man, a guy with his product knowledge, his voice, who can do both play-by-play and color.
I don't know what
he's doing now.
you
can find a role for.
Yeah, like,
that's interesting. I have no idea. I'm gonna Google it because I have no idea what he's working on right now.
I would have been so much more excited to see him in AEW rather than Jim Ross.
Yeah. He had a podcast.
Okay.
On sports betting.
Okay, fair enough.
And it was not renewed for a second season.
Well, shit. Can we get him a job, please?
I know.
Like Ring of Honor or MLW or somebody reach out?
Yeah, somebody.
The man's a genius.
Then Mean Gene shills for the hotline. He goes and tries to get a word with Raven. Raven speaks for the first time, spewing out some rhymes. Mean Gene then asks Stevie Richards, who's sitting next to Raven, what the hell is going on with Raven? Richards starts to say something about a special announcement on Nitro the next night, and Raven smacks him.
The relationship between Raven and Stevie Richards is one of my favorite in wrestling history.
It's a real shame Stevie didn't stick around in WCW.
Is it just that they didn't offer him a contract, or like what was
he has a match against Raven, and I think maybe he gets hurt in it, and then he just goes back to ECW.
I mean, he winds up becoming a bigger star going back to ECW, where he's out of Raven's shadow and he gets to kind of do his BWO stuff. That's great, but like he would have been such a great personality to have on TV. Like he could have really made.
It would have been. I mean, the Flock was a very good stable, but it would have been better with Stevie in it.
The Flock needs Stevie in it. You need that like annoying second in command, and the Flock never really had that.
And next up, we have an incredibly random and entertaining match as the Great Muta and Masachono team up against the Steiner brothers.
The NWO Japan. Okay, now, as a bit of backstory, recently, I can't remember exactly in what order it happens, but like when the NWO formed in Japan, Shono was the king of it. Like he was the Hollywood Hogan of NWO Japan. And Muta was who was fighting against the NWO. Well, he's just recently turned heel and joined them. So and then it feels even more hopeless in Japan than it does in America for the baby faces, because there's literally nobody fighting against the NWO there.
Who are New Japan's baby faces at this point?
A bunch of dickheads. They're just
right about their time that their business starts to nosedive.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why it does nosedive. A lot of people attribute it to this. It's like this is the beginning of the end for the Three Musketeers of Hashimoto, Muta, and Shono, because literally, what do you do now? And you've seen them all feud so many times, and they don't really build any new stars because there's some shady dealings with WCW during this time where they won't let NWO Japan lose because some of their guys are in it. So you have to get approval from Bischoff for Scott Norton to lose matches.
Yeah, is this how Scott Norton ends up becoming IWGP champion?
Actually, he just winds up getting kind of super over just because he can't ever lose. So he just squashes everybody. But yeah, basically that's what winds up going on. So it's just this whole convoluted shit that winds up ruining business for New Japan, but it works just fine. But anyway, that's why Muta and Shono are on the same team. Long story to get to that.
Scott comes out with a weird look. He's got a greasy ponytail and a trashy goatee.
He is just like the bleach blonde hair away from Big Papa Pump. He is right there.
He doesn't do that for another 6 months. But yeah.
But also he's looking uncomfortably jacked already.
He's so awesome.
It's just so weird to have watched him in the 90s be the small one. And now to this point where he's whoa, where did all those muscles come from?
Scott hits Muta with a gigantic tiger bomb and then press slams him. What a star this guy is.
I know that the main reason Scott has never, up to this point, been a singles is because he just didn't want to be.
Yeah, he was offered it multiple times, and he just never wanted to leave Rick. They tried to split him both in WCW and the WWF, and he walked out both times.
And I mean, I don't know whether that's just out of loyalty or just because he was more comfortable that way or what the case is. But fuck, man, he wasted a lot of money making years where he could have been a top guy.
Yeah. It's a shame that by the time he actually got his singles run, his body was broken down.
Oh, God, yeah. And he just kept piling so much more muscle on it. He couldn't support it.
Scott goes for a 10 punch in the wrong corner. He gets hit by Chono with an electric chair drop. Scott quickly recovers, hits an insane belly-to-belly to suplex off the top rope.
And Chono didn't take bumps like that.
No.
That was so weird to see him take a huge fucking bump.
Hot tag to Rick. He comes in with Steiner lines. Big belly-to-belly suplex on Muta. Rick hits Muta with the Steiner Bulldog, but Chono breaks up the pin at 2. Dragon suplex from Rick. This match is nuts.
Yeah. This match is so good, guys.
Yeah.
And Muta is such a fucking star in this match. Despite the fact that the fans have no fucking idea who he is. And he's not getting to do much, but just like he's just. If you could have gotten one Japanese guy to come over and actually do serious stuff, it should have been Muta. But they wasted him every time he came over.
Scott hits the Frankensteiner on Muta. That almost gets the pin, but Chono pulls the ref away at the last second to break it up.
Yep.
Then they do the Steiner DDT where Scott gets Muta up on his shoulders and Rick DDTs him off.
I thought they were going to do like the Steiner Bulldog, but instead they just turn it around and do a DDT. It's like, whoa, that's the sickest DDT I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then Chono just stands in the corner and watches while he gets pinned.
Chono looks like a dickhead here.
It's clear that he knows how it's supposed to end, but Scott forgets to go and block him.
Yeah, Scott is supposed to body block him here and stop him from breaking the pin up.
So, like, right at the end before the pin happens, like, Scott's like, oh, shit. And he just starts sprinting at Chono, and Chono's like, whoa, don't hit me. Don't hit me.
Awesome match. What a pleasant surprise.
God, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, this is... I've seen various versions of this match before, but, like, what a pleasant surprise this is on this show. Like, God, yes.
I thought it was interesting that the New Japan guys did the job here, because it's sort of just stated as fact that, like, oh, the Japanese guys couldn't lose in WCW for political reasons, but it doesn't really hold up.
No, the Japanese guys were constantly losing in WCW. Like, they never rose above mid-card status at all.
Yeah.
They were treated like jobbers when they came out. Like, here, like, it doesn't even... They're not a threat to the Steiners, really, at any point.
Next up, we've got some more international flavor as we get a Lucha Rules six-man tag match as Juventud Guerrera, Hector Garza, and Lismark Jr. team up against La Parca, Psicosis, and Viano 4. This is quite the collection of talent here.
Can I just, like, I want to pay WCW a huge compliment, too. Because what we've seen on this show so far is, like, martial arts.
Yeah.
Some like Mexican-Japanese hybrid cruiserweight stuff, a puro slugfest, and now just pure lucha libre. That's so nuts.
No other company does this.
No, to this day, I can't think of another company that's balanced it out this well. You know?
No, we saw at Canadian Stampede they had the extraordinary Japanese match,
right?
And how that was presented compared to this.
Like this is and like. These guys are presented like they're cool. Not necessarily like they're a big deal, because they're still talking about Rodman during all of their matches, but like it's presented like, man, this is going to be great. You guys enjoy this, instead of being like, oh, I guess we hired some Japanese guys. I don't know any of their names.
So of these guys, they clearly see Hector Garza as the star, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Garza is such a funny story because, like, WWE gets him later and does the exact same thing. They're like,
they had him already.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was at the Rumble 97 at the beginning.
And they were like, oh, obviously Hector Garza's the guy. And, like, in Mexico, it was the same way. But he doesn't ever really get over. Like, he just kind of floats around like a journeyman. And, like, the same thing happens in TNA. They get Garza, and they're like, he's going to be a star, and he's not. Until Perros del Mal finally comes around. And he turns heel for the first time in his career. And that was one of the hottest things in Mexican wrestling in the last 20 years.
Yeah. And we lost him, didn't he? He died.
Yeah, unfortunately,
right? Yeah, yep. Lost him too soon.
That was kind of the end of Perros del Mal, and that's when, like, Los Ingobernables became the big deal instead, and, like, that whole thing.
So this one's Lucha Rules. What does that mean?
Primarily, it just means that when you jump over the top rope and land on the floor, it's the same as tagging in the next guy.
Sure.
So that you don't just have to constantly be tagging people and then jumping over the top rope.
I feel like that's like the kayfabe explanation for like this match is kind of existent in its own universe.
Basically, yes.
Like, pay no attention to like the fact that guys are like kicking out of power bombs and tombstones and stuff.
Yes. I mean, that's basically all it is that Lucha Libre... In a Lucha Libre match in Mexico, basically pins happen between whoever the fuck happens to be in the ring when the pin happens. They don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, the rules, you don't have to tag, you don't have to sell shit, you don't have to use psychology.
But see, I've always resented the concept of people saying, like, there's no psychology in Lucha Libre and in matches like this, because it's not true. It's just a different kind of psychology. You're telling the stories to different people who expect different things from their matches. So yeah, like when they do like that spot in the middle where they just do like everyone's in a big star formation and like rowing each other's legs. Yeah, it's stupid. But like La Parka completely inverts the idea of what normally happens in that comedy spot when he takes Hoovy and just chucks him down on top of Lizmark, stiff as shit.
I
Like
love La Parka.
Yeah.
He's so fucking big. Like he's twice the size of the other cruiserweights.
He's like the Kane of the cruiserweights. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so like there is psychology. It's just different. And it's important that people understand that because they'd always be like, well, he doesn't wrestle like Chris Benoit. Like, that's not the fucking idea.
Yeah. The heel team is managed by Sonny Ono. Tenay is back on commentary. He's explaining Mexican wrestling, what Rudos and Technicos are. That all the face teams are all set. The face team's all second generation wrestler. Just great backstory. Love it.
Yeah. And like they've got such a great babyface team here. Like it's just it seems randomly assembled, but these really are who they thought were like the future of Lucha Libre, these three.
Garza misses an Asai moonsault and lands on his feet. Kids never ever do that.
No, you will break ankles.
He hits Viano with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker out on the floor. Hoovy and La Parka get in the ring. La Parka gets thrown over the top rope. Hoovy pops out of the ring with a head scissor down onto the floor. Then La Parka holds Hoovy so Sonny Ono can kick him, but Hoovy ducks and La Parka gets hit. Lots of miscommunications from the heel team. Hoovy hits a springboard splash onto all three heels, and then all three faces break out no hands planches out to the floor.
Yes.
Awesome spot.
Just so cool.
Psychosis powerbombs Hoovy off the top rope.
Okay, can we talk about this for a second? Because Psychosis tries to kill Hoovy here.
Yeah, he
it
does.
Seems like he gets up there and just decides to invent a move out of nowhere. Because I've never seen this move ever in my entire life. Like, he turns around like he's going to do, like, the Razor's Edge off the top rope. But then he just, like...
Splash Mountain.
Yeah, but then he grabs him with his legs from behind, and this does, like, a front sunset flip powerbomb, which Hoovy takes, like, directly on the back of his head.
This was a horrible idea.
What a dump. And, like, I don't think Hoovy had any idea what was coming. It looks like, go find a GIF of this. It looks nasty.
Hoovy reverses a powerbomb with a Hurricane Rana, and then everyone gets in the ring and everyone starts pinning everyone, and the referee counts it no matter who it is.
Yep, that's the best. I love that was kind of the idea. I think this was Mickey J who was the ref in this.
Yeah.
And literally he's just
give him a good workout.
Literally, it's him like sitting in a corner at one point looking around like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just counting pinfalls here.
Now Garza and Lizmark lock the star submission hold on until La Parka just kind of grabs Lizmark and throws him out of the ring.
Yes.
Everyone goes for top rope dives and misses.
Yep, that's a famous lucha spot.
Viano hits a suplex. He goes to the top, and a bunch of stuff happens. I can't really call what happened here.
Have we gotten to the part yet where Hoovy flies 100 feet through the air?
No, that's coming up in a second.
Oh, okay, cool.
Viano hits a suplex. He goes to the top rope. Lizmark with a crossbody from the top rope to the floor. La Parka hits a corkscrew plancha.
Yes!
Then Garza drops down on all fours. Hoovy launches himself and I swear goes 15 feet in the air.
Here's the thing. You've seen this spot before. It's basically the poetry in motion spot the Hardy Brothers do, right?
But out to the floor.
Yeah. In Lucha, this is a famous spot. Like, it's pretty frequently done. But Garza sets up literally in the middle of the ring. It is impossible that anyone will just leap off of his back and clear the remaining however many feet it is to the floor. But, like, he pops up and Hoovy jumps, and I swear to God he goes 15 feet. It is the craziest leapfrog thing I've ever seen. And he hits it perfectly.
Psychosis gets backdropped over the top rope onto everyone. Then Garza hits a corkscrew plancha off the top rope onto all five guys.
Yep, that's his spot. His slight spin around, that's him.
Man, that looks awesome.
It really does. And imagine all these guys doing like 50 flips and killing themselves, and his signature spot is one rotation.
Viano 5 runs in to replace Viano 4. He accidentally clotheslines Psychosis, then gets hit with a missile dropkick and a moonsault by Garza and pinned. Awesome match.
Yeah, just so cool. Like, all these guys look like stars. It's just a ton of fun, action-packed. Love it.
They're really pushing Garza, but this a few weeks after this, he beat Scott Hall on Nitro. And that's pretty much it for him.
I get why you push Garza, right? Because he moves like the rest of these luchadors,
Looks
but he's
good.
like a foot taller.
Doesn't wear a mask.
Yeah, he's a guy who could actually push like higher up in the card.
I don't know how his English was.
Not good.
Yeah, okay, that'll hold you back.
But like the star coming out of this, it's got to be Hoovy.
God, Hoovy's such a badass. Shame he was such a good-looking guy and they had to take the mask off him.
Yeah, but like Hoovy's such a star here. Like he's just he should get compared more to Ray than he does. Like everyone revisionistly is like, "Oh, Ray was like the biggest star. Everything he did was amazing." But like,
I loved Hoovy as a kid.
Hoovy was like Ray with charisma in these days.
Yeah, I'll actually say I don't think it was a mistake to take the mask off Hoovy.
No, he was so fucking good looking. I mean,
like Ray, they never should have unmasked. That was horrible.
Because he looked like an 8-year-old. Yeah,
it looked like an asshole.
Hoovy just looks like a tiny, sexy guy.
Yeah.
Now, turning him into the Juice wasn't a great idea, except for the fact that I love it so much.
Show keeps rolling because next up we've got the career match between Sullivan and Benoit. No DQ, falls count anywhere. Somebody's going to die.
This match is great.
Oh my God, I loved this. This is the first time I'd seen the hockey fight spot in wrestling.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, love when they square off and they're just dealing on each other.
And like, Benoit at this point is probably the best that he ever was. Like, certainly not as a character because he can't string together 3 words to save his life. Yeah. But he like looks great and he's young and he's moving. And
he's in great shape, but he's a lot slimmer here than when by the time he got to the WWF, he was overly bulky.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that's what you had to do to be a heavyweight in WWE, but he's so fast here and he looks so nimble and he's mean. Like he is a dickhead in this match.
It's got that nasty streak to him. Sullivan is backed up by Jacqueline and Jimmy Hart. Him and Jacqueline are having problems. Benoit gets a really nice pop. No woman with him, no mention of that storyline. Woman will never be seen on television or referenced again after this.
Well, that's another kind of wrinkle that puts it into this whole story, is that you really feel like this was supposed to be woman's spot, right? Where she like Sullivan forces her to come back and be with him, but then she turns on him and Benoit and her like walk off together at the end.
Or she saves Benoit from Jacqueline.
Yeah, just something like...
Which would have gotten a ridiculous pop. They sent her... she really ends up being the victim when Benoit murders her after this. But, her career ends because of this. She just gets erased.
And she's just like, yeah, well, fuck it. I'll just go be a housewife. Like, it's just... She just moves on from wrestling. Which, fine for her if she was happy doing that. But just having Jacqueline be the reason this match ends just feels very weird.
Yeah. So, hockey fight spot to start. Sullivan throws Benoit over the top rope, whips him into the security railing. Jacqueline gets her shots in on Benoit, throws him into the railing too. Fucking love Jacqueline here. She's like a mini China.
Yeah, this is the best because Jacqueline's just beating Benoit's ass, and he keeps trying to shove her off, but she just keeps coming back. It feels like a real 2-on-1 advantage, not like a valet at all.
I've referenced this before, but there's an amazing Kevin Sullivan squash match against Hardbody Harrison where Jacqueline just kicks the shit out of this guy. And it ends with it's spring break, so it ends with Sullivan throwing him into the pool.
Love it.
Such a great match. And turns out Hardbody Harrison was a monster, so he deserved it.
I totally agree with that. I kind of wish that they had done more of that with Chyna, honestly. Is just have her beat the shit out of guys.
Yeah, and Triple H throw him out of the ring, and she just pounds on the guy.
Or just before the match starts, first you're going to go one-on-one with Chyna, and she beats their ass, and then Triple H just picks up the pieces.
Benoit throws Jacqueline into Sullivan, then he deals on him. Jacqueline gets right back up. Sullivan throws her into Benoit. They fight up onto the stage. Benoit gets thrown into the beach house. Sullivan hits him with surfboards and beach chairs. Jimmy Hart gets up on the lifeguard chair and it just collapses. That didn't look right.
No, I think Benoit was supposed to push it over, but it just falls over.
God. Oh, fuck.
Big old spot for Jimmy.
Benoit gets ganged up on again, and at this point, I'm just like, where the fuck are the horsemen?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't his boys coming to help him?
Who all is in the Horsemen now? It's just Flair, Arn, and McMichael.
Flair and Mongo. Arn's not really around because he's had his neck problems.
Okay.
Arn announces his retirement a few weeks after this.
Right. But, like, lest you say, it wouldn't necessarily have made sense for Flair to get involved here, but Mongo's in the next match, and later in the night, Benoit and Mongo come out together to do some stuff.
Yeah.
Where's Mongo?
I just hate in wrestling where the babyface is getting his ass kicked and none of his this guy doesn't have one friend to come help him.
And that would always bother me. Like, sometimes it's just like, all right, nobody's going to come to help John Cena. Fuck John Cena, right?
He's an asshole, I guess.
But if Roman Reigns is getting jumped on Raw, where is Seth Rollins?
Like, how is that supposed to put heat on the heel and not on Seth?
Yeah, we know damn well they're best friends and Seth is in the back. Where is he?
Yeah. Just doesn't. I don't like that. I hate
it.
You need to explain it. Have Seth get jumped backstage or establish that Seth has left the building. Like, give it an explanation. Think a little bit more.
The thing we bring up the most often, relationships matter in wrestling, and you have to establish them and reference them for them to matter. If you don't mention them, except when it's convenient for you, fans don't care.
Sullivan hits a sick pile driver on the concrete.
Hell yeah, he does.
Then the double stomp. He gets a trash can lid and smashes it in Benoit's face. They go back in the ring. Benoit fires up, and the crowd goes ape shit.
The crowd loves Benoit.
He's got so much fire.
Like, he has more fire than anyone on this show. Like, it's not even close. If he could, like, string together one coherent sentence, he would already have the title.
And now something weird happens where suddenly Kevin Sullivan starts working babyface.
Okay, we also have to acknowledge that, like, first of all, Dusty Rhodes gives away the finish to this match before it even starts. On commentary, where he's just like, it's not fair that somebody who's been in the business as long as Kevin Sullivan should have to put his career on the line. The business will miss him so much when he's gone. Like, he basically starts eulogizing.
Oh, well, he's an awful person. He's a monster heel. Like,
yes.
What's going on here?
For like 10 years on this show, he's been running like evil, demented, devilish
Has Sullivan
organizations.
Ever been a babyface?
I don't think so. How could he be?
Like back in the early 80s, maybe, but yeah, for a decade in WCW, he's been a heel.
Even in FCW, his gimmick was he worshipped the devil.
He was a Satanist.
Yes. So, like, I don't know. But, like, yeah, halfway through this match, Dusty Rhodes is like, look at that man. He's fighting for his career. Okay, so is Benoit. Like, what's your point?
Benoit gets Sullivan in the crossface. The arm drops twice, but not a third time. He makes to the ropes. Benoit locks in the crossface again. Sullivan gets to the ropes again. Benoit starts pounding on Sullivan, but Sullivan basically hulks up.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does.
Starts shaking his arms. Like, what is going on here? Sullivan makes a comeback. Gets Benoit in the Tree of Woe, knees him in the gut. Jacqueline turns on Sullivan, blasts him with the wooden chair. I love the gimmicked wooden chair.
I love it too.
It looks so good when it explodes. Benoit with a huge diving headbutt for the pin. Crowd goes nuts. It was a little weird, but I loved this match.
Yeah, like it's just so stiff, and it feels... Like, despite the fact that we have established we don't know what the fuck is going on here, like it feels serious.
Yeah, there's stake. I mean, there is a gravity to this match.
And then, like, literally, they leave Sullivan in the ring afterwards. Like, this is a major moment. Like, a proud man is retiring and hanging up the boots for good.
And I don't think he may have come back to WC. He may have. They brought back the Varsity Club in WCW in 2000. He may have actually wrestled as part of that, but he's pretty much gone.
Yeah. It just feels. It doesn't feel like an earned moment though, because he's literally turned babyface like 2 minutes ago, if you can even say that.
Yeah, Jimmy Hart berates him, and Sullivan shoves him and runs him off, so he gets a little bit of dignity.
But I think they were expecting like a standing ovation for
Yeah, they're
him,
going for more of a Macho Man Liz spot here.
and they do not get it.
Oh. Ooh. Next up, we've got the U.S. title. Jeff Jarrett defends against Steve Mongo McMichael.
Ooh.
Jeff Jarrett's WCW music is awesome.
I just love that, like, Jeff Jarrett's whole career for like 15 years is just a rib on Southern people.
Yeah. Too bad he sucks.
He sucks so much, Steve.
His ring gear is shit. His matches are terrible.
Like, in as much as you can say that Jeff Jarrett ever became good, when do you feel like Jeff Jarrett actually is good?
When he got his hair cut in the WWF, I think Slapnuts Jarrett was pretty good.
Yeah.
He wasn't great. He was a good wrestler. The character never, because he couldn't play a badass. He could never take the whole "don't piss me off" stuff. Just didn't work.
He never worked for me until he finally started to like see it. Like later in the middle of like his TNA run, he finally starts realizing how his super serious character has been so fucking ridiculous all these years, and he starts playing with it. And that's when I start liking Jeff Jarrett. Like the fake MMA guy and all of that stuff. That's gold. Humorous Jarrett is great. And like later in his career, he becomes like an amazing old school fiery babyface. Like nobody was watching at that point, so nobody remembers that. But here, he's just the shits.
There is so much heat on him, though.
Oh, he's just the most unlikable person alive.
I loved it. Yeah, massive Jarrett sucks chant.
Well, they're trying to make him Flair. And everyone knows it, and nobody wants it.
Yeah, so Jarrett was in the Horsemen, and then he got kicked out because nobody liked him. Which I think that's actually the reality too.
That's so fucking funny. Yeah, it really is.
McMichael has his wife Deborah backing him up. This is a pretty shitty match.
You know, let me give some props to Mongo. Mongo's
must we?
Look, Mongo's spots in this match are fine.
Sure.
That's the best I can say, but I think it's worth saying. Mongo is not the problem with this match. Just the fact that it has to happen is the problem with this match.
They fight out outside the ring for a little bit. Deborah distracts the referee. Jarrett gets Mongo's Halliburton, decks him with it, and gets the pin. And then Deborah walks out with Jarrett. So she has turned on her husband, McMichael. And doesn't it feel like we're doing another version of Benoit and Sullivan here?
It's the same fucking storyline.
Yeah. Gets cut short because Jarrett jumps back to the WWF in October.
It's just so weird.
It's a much shittier version of that storyline.
Much shittier, yes.
Everyone involved is worse. Then we go to Mean Gene. He says he's absolutely appalled by what he's just seen.
I'm sure he is.
I love indignant Mean Gene.
Just like shitting on people morally. Like, what the hell? How could you?
I don't know what the hell is going on here, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
And he never, ever did.
Got to call the hotline for that.
Yeah, you got to. I know exactly what's going on here, but I can't tell you guys until you buy the hotline.
I wish they would put the hotline stuff on the network. I would listen to those reports.
Just like, can you imagine how hacky most of them have to have been?
Yeah.
Just like how garbage they must have been. Just like, stay on the line and you'll hear what Sting's doing. Sting is at the gym.
It's $2.50 a minute. Then we get a pre-taped promo from Hogan and Rodman that goes on forever.
Like, so many of these Hogan like the NWO was built on these like short music video style promos that are awesome.
Hogan never figured out how to do these.
No, Hogan just whenever Hogan is left to his own devices, he just talks and talks and talks. And whenever Rodman says anything, it's cool and interesting. Whenever Hogan says anything, it's like, shut the fuck up.
All right, next up we've got a tag match. Randy Savage and Scott Hall team against Diamond Dallas Page and his mystery partner, who is revealed to be Kurt Hennig, to pretty much no reaction because The crowd was hoping for Sting.
Yep, they do not care.
Hennig gets to work a little bit. He's looking good. He's in amazing shape, we should say.
Incredible shape, yes. He has not wrestled since 1993.
Yeah.
And here he is rocking it out.
Like, he drops the straps to show off his abs.
Which is not a thing he often would do.
No, Kurt Hennig got a beer gut.
And he always did. He's fucking from Minnesota. He's not out here with the $1 million bod.
Page gets caught in the wrong corner and worked over. Hennig finally tags in, but he gets thrown into Page, and then he knocks Page out. Hennig walks out. Hall hits the outsider's edge. Savage hits the flying elbow, and Page gets pinned. Nothing special to that match. It was just storyline advancement. Don't think anyone was surprised that Hennig turned on Page.
Now, the rationalization that Hennig would use is because DDP was pulling down the rope, so it caused Hennig to get thrown out of the ring. So that's why he was mad at Page. So he's not really on anybody's side necessarily. It's a whole thing. Teasing whether or not people were in the NWO was basically the entire booking thing at this point.
Next up, we've got Roddy Piper against Ric Flair. Enormous pops for both guys.
Yes, they do. Even just as a face versus face match, which normally doesn't work, the crowd loves both. The crowd is hot for this, for everything.
Yeah. And they end up getting a surprisingly great match.
Roddy Piper
sucked in WCW.
He's just old. First of all, can we just be honest here for a second? Steve, can we just be a little bit honest about Roddy Piper? He always kind of sucked.
He was never a technician. He was a good brawler back in the day.
Yes, he was a good brawler, and he had so much charisma, and the crowd loved him so much that it made up for all of those shortcomings. It's kind of the same way as Hogan, just from a different direction. But when it came to actually getting in the ring, I can't think of a great match he ever had except the one with Brad.
No, not a lot. Dog collar match against Valentine.
Pretty good, yes. But just generally speaking, great matches aren't something that he did. But as he got older and slower, he just depended so much on the crowd support because he couldn't do shit except throw punches at this point. He can't take bumps. His hips are destroyed.
Yeah, he's got a hip replacement. He's 43 here, so he's not that old, but his body's pretty broken.
Yeah, it's pretty funny that he's the same age as AJ Styles is now.
AJ Styles is in a little bit better shape. They trade some really stiff chops to start this one off.
Yeah, they do.
Flair does the Flair flip, and he gets clotheslined off the apron. Flair recovers to work over Piper's knee, lock him in the figure four. Piper's able to turn it over, and Flair slips out. Flair telegraphs a backdrop, but Piper catches him with a swinging neck breaker. Flair follows that up with a low blow. Piper fires up. He backdrops Flair, clotheslines him out to the floor. Flair gets up on the top. He gets thrown off by Piper, who locks him in the figure four. Piper appears to have the match won. Benoit and McMichael interfere. Piper dodges a Benoit diving headbutt, lands on Flair. Referee is distracted by Benoit as Mongo comes in for the tombstone. This is just ridiculous.
Yes.
Referee looks like an idiot here.
And there's literally a point where Mongo does the tombstone and then he pats the referee on the back and points him towards the action and then climbs out of the ring. And the ref just huh? Well, I guess it doesn't matter why you were in the fucking ring.
Flair covers. He gets the 1, 2. Piper kicks out. Gigantic pop.
Gigantic.
Flair chops Piper, but that only pisses him off. Piper gets the sleeper. Arm drops 3 times, and Piper wins it. Hell of a match. Piper's best WCW match by a huge margin.
Genuine question. Is Roddy Piper the last person in wrestling to win a match with a sleeper hold, do you think?
Didn't Triple H beat Jeff Hardy with a sleeper hold once?
Yeah, you're right. And I think Dolph, now that you mention it, was doing it.
Yeah, Dolph did a sleeper for a little while.
All right, fair enough.
In the long and weird career of Dolph Ziggler.
I just love that, from the moment Roddy Piper graduated wrestling school to the moment he ended his career, never got a second finisher.
No.
Never needed one.
All right, main event time. We've got the Giant and Lex Luger against Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman. Michael Buffer's here to do the introductions, which, as always, I love.
Yeah, he's so fucking good at it.
Giant and Luger come out first together to Luger's music. Both looking pretty awesome here.
Luger had low-key great music.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that people don't really talk
Really
about.
catchy.
Like, yeah, it's just like some great main event. Also, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for us to put over Lex Luger.
No, this is him at his best, though.
He is awesome here. And people are, like, the fans love him.
He's
like,
on fire.
And, like, he's going to win the title and be, like, the first guy to get to the NWO.
Yeah, they've been pushing him for months. Like, all the way back at Starrcade in December, he was the first guy to get a win over the NWO when he racked the Giant.
Yeah. So, like, it's just a huge, huge deal for him. And, like, it's great. Like, there's a moment where, like, when he wins, it's like he feels like the only guy still on Team WCW. Like, they very deliberately, like, position him as, like, the one bright spot in a sea of darkness, but he's gonna keep fighting. And, like, that'll put anybody over.
Hogan and Rodman are out next. They've got Randy Savage backing them up. Lots of stalling here. Really just waiting for Rodman to tag in. So in the meantime, let's play a game of how tall are these guys actually? So Rodman in the NBA was billed at 6'7". A couple weeks before this, he told Jay Leno he was 6'6". You figure in wrestling boots, he's probably about 6'7".
Right.
When him and the Giant get in the ring together, they're about the same height.
They are like eye to eye.
Which Rodman points out.
And that's such a great thing to point out, too. He's just like, hey, big man, I'm looking you dead in the eyes. Which I'm sure that the Giant was like, hey, fuckhead, stop ruining my gimmick.
I'm supposed to be 7 feet tall, you asshole. Hogan is a couple inches shorter than Rodman. Like, they stand right next to each other, and Rodman's got a good, 3 inches on him.
So you got to figure Hogan's, 6'4", maybe?
Yeah, and Luger's about the same height as Hogan.
Yeah. So, I mean, that all kind of tracks, though. I mean, it makes sense.
Giant's 6'8" or 6'9". Rodman's 6'7". Hogan and Luger are about 6'4".
Yeah.
Pretty reasonable. Hogan is not 6'9" or whatever he was billed at in the WWF.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. The tallest guy in the match is Kevin Nash when he shows up later.
He's so much bigger than everyone else.
5 minutes in, Hogan is gassed and he tags out to Rodman. That gets a huge pop.
Let's be clear. The fans don't give a shit about anything in this match except Rodman. Like, the second Rodman gets in, the place is buzzing.
They kind of love Rodman, but they really want to see him get his ass kicked.
Yeah, they want both. They're just like, yeah, Rodman's the best, but he's the worst. I love him. Kill him.
Rodman gets in the ring, still wearing his sunglasses. There's a long stall, and then Rodman and Luger finally lock up. And then Rodman arm drags Luger.
And the entire arena explodes.
Yeah. The announcers go crazy. This is the greatest thing anyone has ever seen.
This is literally like Hogan slamming Andre levels of everyone freaking the fuck out.
I just want to point out that at WrestleMania 1, Roddy Piper, wouldn't sell for Mr. T, wouldn't let T take him down. And here Luger's just like, oh, yeah, he can take me.
Yeah, I'm only the hottest I'll ever be in my entire career. But, yeah, I'll let this basketball player take me down. Let's go. He can out-wrestle me. Fine, that's not what I'm known for. Who cares?
Luger comes back. He arm drags both Rodman and Hogan. Rodman and Hogan both bail out of the ring, and Rodman is selling like Luger shot him.
Yes.
Really good selling, actually.
It's fantastic.
Rodman gets back in. He leapfrogs Luger and then hits him with a shoulder block. He gets so much air here.
He does. He is, look, we all know that he's a great natural athlete, but dude is, into the fucking lights above the arena.
He looks like he could jump a chain link fence, standing flat-footed.
He probably could.
Yeah. Rodman leapfrogs a couple more times, then he gets caught with a clothesline. Giant and Hogan both tag in. They have a quick exchange. Rodman tags in. He tries to leapfrog Giant, but Giant catches him and slams him, and then spanks him.
Yep, sure does.
That was a pretty great spot.
Giant loves spanking people.
He does. That's one of his signatures. Hogan tags back in, squares off with Giant, catches him with a knee to the gut. Hogan and Rodman then double hip toss the Giant.
Love that.
They both jump on top for the pin, but Giant powers out. Hogan with a leg drop on Luger, but that only gets 2 because he lays on him rather than cover him.
Mm-hmm.
What a dick.
What a dickhead.
Luger manages to make a hot tag to Giant as Rodman tags in. Giant takes out both Rodman and Hogan. Now, quote-unquote, Sting walks down the aisle. But mysteriously, he's 7 feet tall.
Yeah, let me paint you a word picture about this, ladies and gentlemen. Sting comes down the aisle, and the announcers are immediately like, oh my God.
It's Sting!
It's Sting! Is he here to join the NWO? What is he going to do? What's going to happen? And this Okay. WCW has gone and spent $2,000. This is a true thing that they did. $2,000 to make a mold of Sting's actual face with the face paint on it to put on Kevin Nash. The idea being that when he comes out, we will think that it's Sting. He'll assault the good guys and we'll be like, oh no, Sting's joined the NWO. Problem with that. Does not look like Sting. It was a total waste of money.
Like shit.
A plastic Sting mask would have looked more like Sting. This looked like a half-assed Mike Myers mask.
Jesus Christ.
Second of all, Kevin Nash is a
6'10"?
little bit taller than Sting, who's probably 6'2".
Yeah, he's taller than the Giant.
Yes. So like suddenly Sting gets in the ring, he goes over the top rope, which Sting has never done his entire career.
He can't do that.
Towering over all these other people, all of whom are taller than Sting, including Luger and Hogan.
Yeah.
And like, no, why would you have it be Nash? Why? That doesn't make any sense. Even Hall would be closer than Nash.
Yeah, Hall or Savage.
Just like anybody roughly 6'2" and not obscenely muscular could be
What
Sting.
happened to fake Sting?
Jeff Farmer. I think he was in New Japan.
Yeah. Did they pretend he was the real Sting in New Japan?
Well, they called him bogus Sting, but he did all the Sting stuff.
Okay, but like they didn't like sell him to the fans as this is Sting.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
But like the fans hated him because like Japanese fans knew Sting because he had wrestled Muta so many times and he'd been part of the tours that were over back in the day. So like they hated him for being fake Sting. Why can't we get real Sting?
So Nash knocks out Giant with the baseball bat. Hogan then accidentally hits Rodman and gets put in the torture rack. Nick Patrick runs in, takes the submission, calls for the bell. Luger has tapped out Hogan again.
And this is one of the best moments of WCW at this time, as I love this. It's like he racks Hogan, drops him, grabs Rodman, racks Rodman, just grabs grabs everybody, racks them. Luger is the king.
Yep. Hogan and Rodman bail out. The show ends with Hogan complaining that Luger and Giant cheated. I actually didn't hate this match. Like, real hot take, because I know it's a Hogan match and it's Rodman and we're supposed to hate. I actually thought this was pretty entertaining.
This kind of goes back to what I said about Lucha Libre earlier. Like, you can only call it shitty if, like, in context of what it's going for. Like, you can say, like, oh, Hollywood Hogan matches, nothing ever happened. But the idea was to work the crowd into a frenzy, and they absolutely did that.
Yeah, like, no, it's not Steamboat and Savage. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah, Jericho and Ultimo busted their asses earlier. The crowd sat on their hands. Hogan's doing jack shit, and the crowd is literally having orgasms in the crowd. Like, Dennis Rodman does one arm drag, and the crowd loses their shit. And they put Lex Luger over so hard at the end of this. You can't overestimate that. This is one of the very few pay-per-views that goes off the air with a babyface looking good.
So we'll do the fallout here. A couple weeks after this, Luger would have probably the best moment of his career. On the 100th episode of Nitro, Luger challenged Hogan for the WCW title on Nitro at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Fought off like the entire NWO. racked Hogan, tapped him out, won the WCW title in an amazing moment. Gives me chills.
Like, it can't be like if you were watching back then, like this storyline goes for so long without like a single ray of hope. Like the way this match ends is considered a ray of hope. And it's not really, they don't really win anything. It's just a slight victory. But that's as good as it gets at this point. No one's actually beat. The outsiders constantly have the titles no matter what you do to them. You can't get the belt off Hogan. You can't really get to it.
Hogan won't even defend the belt. Hogan hasn't defended the belt at this point. He defended against Piper at Super Brawl in February. Hasn't defended it since. It's been months.
The idea that you would not only get a match with Hogan for the title, but finally be able to fight off all the outside interference, all of the nonsense and bullshit, everyone coming down, and a babyface won. WCW won. One of WCW's homegrown stars from the days of the NWA has the world title. It's a beautiful moment.
In front of a huge sellout crowd at the Palace. The crowd is just roaring when Luger gets him in the Rock.
And then
they do this, and they do a great, like, there's like 10 minutes left. This was also the first time, I don't know if it was a full like 3 hours, but it was a solid like 2.5. They did a really long overrun to stay with it. That's the other thing, is it's a great tease because they've always done this like, oh, like Hogan's going to wrestle the Giant, and like the match will start with 2 minutes left in the show and there'll be a shitty DQ. Like, you think that's what's going to happen this time. Instead, we actually get a full match and Luger wins the title. Then we get a huge celebration. Like, all the WCW guys come out to the ring to celebrate with Luger, like lift him up on their shoulders. They like clean the spray paint off the belt. They go backstage, pour champagne on him. He gets an interview with Mean Gene. They'll show Hogan like in the back, flipping out, like smashing furniture, yelling at the NWO. Just awesome, awesome stuff.
Like, it feels like a moment in history. Like it's finally changed. It's like nothing's going to be the same again. We've finally gotten one up on them, and even if we haven't won the war, we've won this battle.
And then they cut his nuts off.
The next fucking week.
Yeah, he holds the belt 5 days. He wins it on Monday. He loses it in Sturgis at Road Wild on Saturday.
I just...
Killed him.
And see, the thing is, I understand that you got to get the belt back on Hogan. That Lex isn't your law. You're going to Hogan Sting.
You got to get to Hogan Sting. He probably should have held it till like Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, at least give him a month.
Yeah,
right. At least
overall Halloween Havoc. Give him a little time with it.
At least let it build and just like get some heat on that match, and then like they fuck him out. But then Luger's not just a piece of shit. Yeah. But like it'll always be next to his name that he held it for 5 days, and that will just make him look like an asshole.
Yeah, I think these super short title reigns almost always hurt the guy. Yeah. Tommy Rich, famously, Kane. Trying to think who else held the belt for like a day or two. I don't think it's a good business move.
No,
it's never. If you're gonna do that, I mean, the other thing you could have done is you could have just done a dusty finish.
Yeah,
could have just had Luger win the belt and then strip him,
which is not unusual for this company at all.
Do that all the time. I mean, that's an overdone finish because they've done that with the Outsiders so many times at this point.
But I mean, like at least it would have gotten heat, which is what you're trying to do, is get more heat on Hogan. But what you instead do is you kill Luger.
Yeah, I mean, it probably got more heat on Hogan, but yeah, Luger, it was a great moment for him, but, a month or two after that, he was badly diminished.
Yes. It's the same thing they wind up doing to Sting in, like, 99, where it's just like, you fucking kill him, you cut his nuts off and kill him the second, or in 98, after he wins the title, you cut his nuts off and kill him, and
wins the belt, but he has to give it, but then they hold it up, and then he wins it, but not really, and then he loses it.
And you can't get that momentum back once you've lost it, boys and girls. It's gone.
Motherfucker should have gone to the tanning salon. So, yeah, that's a wrap on Bash the Beach 97. Like I said, a very pleasant surprise of a show. Much better than I was expecting.
I really enjoyed it. I mean, of all the WCW shows that we've done over the years, I'd say this is probably in my, like, top 5. Maybe top 3.
Like, this is one of the better ones.
Absolutely.
Strong show. Great variety. I mean, if you're just looking for something different you've never seen before, such a variety on this show. You've got your big, hot, like, storyline matches. You've got Lucha Libre. You've got Japanese wrestling. You got hardcore wrestling. A little bit of everything.
You got like Kurt Hennig, like a surprise partner match. You got two old legends fighting it out. You got celebrity. You got everything. The only thing that you really need to take off this card is Jarrett versus McMichael, and it's a perfect card.
Yeah, just at its best, WCW was just an incredible variety show. There really was something for everyone, and in a lot of ways, each match would give you something really different.
It just shows how much, as much as we will rightly malign Eric Bischoff on this podcast, he understood television. He understood what people wanted to see. They wanted to see variety in every segment. They wanted surprises. They wanted things to go somewhere and escalate and lead to something, and that's what this is.
Yeah. So that is it for Bash at the Beach 97. Next time, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to revisit the WWF Attitude Era with Fully Loaded 1999. It's the end of an era.
Oh, boy. 1999.
Steve Austin versus The Undertaker. First blood for the WWF title. Austin wins. Vince McMahon will never be seen again. If Undertaker wins, Austin will never be the WWF champion again.
I wonder which one happened.
Yeah, I wonder how long that lasted. But lots of fun, crazy, wacky stuff on this show. It's the WWF in 1999, so shit's just out of control.
Yep, it's going to be that good.
Yeah, so that to look forward to next time. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you again.